you know what you know, but you don't know what to do with what you know.
Do with what you know.
Yeah, and when does your life start? It's, you know, your life has been happening forever, and you're taught to defer. Again, your passion, to pursue your passion, which doesn't make sense.
I'm Rob from Life That Travels. Welcome to Hong Kong, and we're on, where are we? Lama Molly
Island.
And Kim. Guys, it's so nice to have hung out with you here in Hong Kong today, and we've been having the most awesome time just chatting about all sorts of different stuff. So it's great to sort of sit down on camera and talk about your incredible experiences studying, living in Hong Kong and elsewhere in the Asia Pacific. And I thought we might start off with something which kind of shocked me, to be brutally honest, which is, tell me about being stranded on a cliff face for 3 hours.
Oh God.
It's one of many.
One of many of our adventures.
Yeah.
It all started when we were attempting to do the Apple Chow to Apple Pai hike. It's like, there's like a big, like one of the South Islands, and then there's like a little bit of like a sand strip, and then there's like another little mini island.
Okay.
So the hills like kind of bumpy.
Yeah.
It seems like all of Hong Kong is bumpy.
Yeah, that is very true. Not like Australia where everything is flat.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we were, our first slight misadventure was that like when we got to the bottom of the first big hill, there were like 3 different paths, and we kind of didn't know which one to take. And so we were like, let's just take the one right in front of us.
Yeah.
We ended up taking this extreme rock climbers one, which like we literally had to like claw our way up.
Really,
it was really steep. And we like people
Normally you walk around the side.
Yeah, if you take the one around the side, there's like some ropes where you can like hold it as you go around.
But it says something about Hong Kong that we went literally like climbed over a fence, went behind these tennis courts, and we're like, this must be the actual route, because it often is.
Yeah.
so like, you know, in retrospect, you're like, of course that wasn't the way to go, but
it was.
You just
accept it as it is.
Yeah.
And so what happened?
So we finished this, and we had this really nice cheese and biscuits and chips and drinks and stuff.
Watch the sunset over the little island. Watch the waves. It's very beautiful.
Sunset. So this is halfway. So we came back and we were like, look, it's getting dark. We need to pick the quicker way, because otherwise you have to go like right back up this hill and down again. It's really quite difficult and like crumbly rock.
And we were quite nervous because we would be pitch black. We didn't really have a lot of like torches or anything with us. Like it was a bit nerve-wracking.
So this guy came along and he was like, well, you can walk around the side. I've done it before. You can just walk around this way instead of go over. And we were like, oh, cool, like, let's do that. Because the first bit is a bit hard. You just have to kind of climb up, and then you'll get onto the path. So we started climbing up, and, you know, you get to a point where you're like, turn back. Like it's now or never, like, turn back. And we didn't, because, you know, you committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just waiting for this point where like eventually you'd see a path, and there was like maybe a pole in the distance, and we were like up on the side of this mountain.
We'd gone, and I think at the start we actually went up a bit too high, and so like I remember we were like clawing our way up, and like we were sliding down, and like the way it was like this hill and then like cliff, and we were like
to the sea.
Into the sea, like with rocks and stuff at the bottom. Like we were quite high up.
Yeah, like you fall and you're gone.
Yeah. And it was accepted at that point that if one of us fell,
what were we gonna do? So it's about 7:30, and it was kind of like, because we'd gone the wrong way up it, we couldn't come back. Like you just had to keep going and hope that we'd get to this path, and we finally made it to this pole, and that was it. It was just a pole. It wasn't a path.
Oh.
So we were sort of like, I think I was a little bit in front waiting for Kim, and we just looked at each other and we're like, we're gonna have to keep going even though it's dark. It's dark now,
and it
turned into,
and we couldn't hold our phones to hold the light because we were afraid if we dropped it, it's gone.
It was
and
really
like
steep.
we needed both hands to like try and grip the cliff because it was very smooth. So there were moments where like we were pressed against the cliff, just shuffling on this like tiny little ledge. And we were like, dear God, please let us.
Yeah, it's like it had been burnt off or something, like a land clear. So
Yeah.
there's no like
Plants to
shrubbery
grip.
to grab onto, and and it just ended up that you go on and on until you think that it must be over, and then there's like ropes and you go swing on this rope to get to the other side. Turns out that it was high tide, so normally you're walking on the sea, on the sand, and we were just trying to do it up
Up on the cliff.
yeah.
The cliffs.
We ran into these eventually after a few hours, these fishermen, and they were really kind, and they were like, what on earth are you doing coming sort of like climbing over this big rock?
And we thought we were like, oh my gosh, we've made it, civilization. And they were just randomly on the middle of the rock, like about halfway through. We still had a bit to go.
They were like, it's going to take you another hour.
And we were like,
Like
oh
at
dear
9
God.
p.m. Yeah.
And I remember at one point I was like tearing up because I was just so stressed, and like I was like I couldn't see anything, and I was like, if I actually fall, like
This is it.
yeah, and a part of me was like, should I just jump now and just end it? Like, just it'll be over and done with, so I don't have to keep going because it's so hard and stressful. And I remember I started like tearing up because I was like, oh my God, am I actually going to have to? And the next day was my first day of my internship. So it's like, am I going to have to sleep on a cliff and just, when the sun rises, keep going and show up to work like bedraggled?
Wow.
Yeah,
And,
it was
like-
an event. We had like we've spoken about it a lot, and it was nice as well because for me, I was worried. I felt like hard to focus on what I was doing, so I was worried about Kim, and like in the end, like
Yeah,
you
like-
have to learn to just trust each other as well, and that was nice. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like I felt like you were really brave, and
You were so brave.
then
What has that done for your friendship? So I mean, we led into this just because that seemed like a kind of funny story to lead off with.
Yeah.
But what's that done for your friendship?
we're very close,
Very
and
close.
we were anyway. But I think we spoke about it as well. Like, oh, so glad that I did it with you.
Yeah.
Because there's people that freak out in that situation, and if you freak out, you can't fix it. You have to, you have to just do it.
Yeah.
And it was good that we were both those kinds of people.
like,
That we were laughing about it even though we were scared, and then when it was over we followed this path, and there was this snake in the road, and we had to end up going around the path,
and like
A
another
snake?
20 minutes.
Like, is it a fucking?
Like we found Molly found these stairs that would have been like a shortcut and would have saved us like half an hour. And Molly started climbing up the stairs, and I was following her. And then Molly turns around and goes, Kim, you gotta go back down. I'm like, I'm not going down. I'm like, these are stairs to freedom, Molly. And she's like, Kim, there's a snake.
it was huge, it was a big snake.
There's
I
like
just
this
thought,
big snake.
of course, like
Of course, there's a snake in our road to freedom. So we have to
yeah. But I think it's nice. I feel like Kim's a real go-getter, a positive person, up for an adventure, and Hong Kong is the place to be friends with someone like that.
And for you as well, though. I can't believe, because I remember you were like, I was like, oh, Molly, I'm freaking out. And you're like, nah, Kim, we're going to be brave. We're going to do this. We're strong, independent girls. We got this.
The silliest thing is we were like, I'd say how like
Over halfway, I think, when I had to jump that little.
we've literally done this really, really difficult thing, very, very high up. We come to the end of this first section, and it's about a drop like this big, and you have to kind of just lower yourself down. Kim's like, I can't do it. I was like, what do you mean you can't? What do you mean you can't do it? You've just done all of these things that are so much harder. So I end up having to be at the bottom, like trying to guide
Wow.
her down. And
I think
funny
it's
how
'cause
your
I
brain
couldn't-
works.
Yeah, like
isn't
I
it?
couldn't see the thing, but Molly's like, Kim, you're just gonna have to jump.
Yeah.
And I was like, but like even though like I was hanging off a cliff, which was obviously much higher than this little jump I had to do, like because I didn't, I guess, have to jump off like into the abyss.
And if you've been clinging to the cliff for hours, jumping off it seems, I guess, out of
Yeah, just the complete
out
opposite
of
of what
the
you should do.
question.
But I remember Molly's like, Kim, it's like the shortest distance, like you just gotta jump. And I remember I just like let go and just slithered to the ground.
Yeah. But
How far into your stay in Hong Kong was this adventure? Because you guys have been here for differing amounts of time.
yeah, I think it was about 3 months
Yeah.
for me and 8 months for you. And
It was only a couple of months ago.
Towards the. I've been here for 6 months, and Kim's been here for a year.
Yeah, roughly a year. So I think
Yeah.
I think it was only a couple of months ago because it was when it was still Ocean Park. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
So obviously, like Hong Kong has probably delivered up some surprises for you guys.
Yeah.
Actually, Molly, you've got another pretty awesome story there, right?
Yeah, this one's not Hong Kong's fault, it's mine. But yeah, I went traveling in China, and I was really excited. Flew into Kunming, which is in Yunnan province, and it's very big for hiking. And I went first to this place on the way to Tiger Leaping Gorge.
Sorry, just pause. Like anything called Tiger Leaping Gorge just firstly sounds like a place you need to visit, and secondly sounds like a place where you need to,
be cautious. Yeah,
very cautious.
So that was like my big goal, and I was really excited. Never made it because I went to a little town called Baisha, and I went for a bike ride, and somewhere along the way I came back in this national park to buy Snickers, and I was just feeling exhausted, and ended up having a cycle another 6 or 7 Ks back, and we took this ridiculous hillway. Of course, you've like two choices, and you'll pick the harder one always by accident. And I was in this cafe, and I ate my food, and I had a drink, and I opened my bag, and I was like, "There's my wallet." And then I was like, "It's okay. Like I have my card and my phone as well, so it'll be fine." And I was like, "No, because my passport's in my wallet."
Oh.
And then it just went on from there. It was just the biggest bureaucratic
So what
hurdle of my
happened?
life.
Like you lost your passport?
Yeah, I lost my passport, and of course you don't lose your passport. I'm not
And sorry, this was like a day trip from Hong Kong to China, or was this like a short-term trip?
This was like in what we call reading week, this midterm break. So it was a 10-day trip, and it was the third day of my trip on the way to Tiger Leaping Gorge. And yeah, everyone thinks those kinds of things happen to someone else, like someone who isn't very clever, and someone who doesn't know it, has not been traveling before, that kind of thing. And I literally, it turns out, probably just left my wallet on a windowsill. And I got back, and I was like, I'll find it because I know where I think I've left it. And the people at the hostel I was staying at were really nice. And the coolest thing, the first night was like 2 a.m. by then, and we got a taxi to this national park, and it felt very Chinese because the security guard came along with his torch and led us up this staircase in this standalone building, and inside there was nothing except one table and 5 or 6 computer screens, and we were looking at the security footage, which was useless because it was like terrible quality.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't really figure out what had happened. So I thought maybe they'll find it in the morning. Someone's handed it into the shop, and went the next morning. No, went with the police. So I was there like in a police car, and the most bizarre thing about it was when I went to like the local police station to say that I'd lost my passport, there was a film crew. So then I had to be and do this in front of a whole film crew. Really? And I was like crying, and they're like getting different angles, and it was just so, you're in shock. Because,
so obviously like big news day in Yunnan province.
Yes, exactly.
It's like Australian university student loses passport.
Silly white girls left trading a passport for a Snickers bar, basically. And
wow.
Most expensive Snickers bar ever bar.
Such regret never having a Snickers. Basically though, like my first thought was, okay, I'm so stressed now, I can't wait to find my passport. Then I was like, okay, hopefully I'll be able to just quickly get a new passport and then continue on this hike. No, I had to fly to Chengdu. It's our closest consulate.
Wow.
Which in China, everything requires a passport.
Okay, so you had to fly to Chengdu?
Yes. And it's one of those things where you have to get really used to part of Chinese culture, maybe the hesitancy of it, when it comes to policy, right? So if they're not familiar with it, they're going to say no. So I had everything I needed. I had a letter from the police and a form that they give you to replace your passport, replace your visa, while you in the process of getting a new one. So it was all like trying to convince them to let me on the plane, then trying to convince people to let me stay in a hotel, because to apply for a passport from overseas,
Yeah.
you have to prove that you're living somewhere.
Yeah.
And without a passport, you can't stay in a hotel. Without the hotel certification, you can't apply for your passport.
Yeah, wow.
It's just a really big
The infinite
process.
loop.
Yeah, and the worst thing was I was by myself. I was by myself in Chengdu, and I didn't have anywhere to live, and I didn't have like clothes to have to stay there for so long.
How long did it take to get sorted?
It was pretty quick. It was 2 weeks. It was
So,
2 weeks.
Out of the blue, you're on like a trip into China, and suddenly passport's gone, and this can happen to anyone,
Yeah.
right? And you've got 2 week enforced stay in a city you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Wow.
really hard. It was
Intense.
really hard for me. And my poor mum, you know, people show their love in different ways. My mum isn't, my mum's not the tactile member of our family, but I call her, and the first thing that she does is that she's not like, "Oh, I'm sorry that's happened to you." It's like, "These are the forms you need to fill out. Here's where you need to go. Like, here's the list." You know, practical things.
The pragmatist,
the things
yeah.
you really need. And I'd called her like in tears at like the 4th hotel that I'd gone to, like, "Oh, Mum, I really need like, and I don't know what I'm gonna do because they're not gonna let me in, and they want to call the police, you know, to get the form." And then the internet cut out. And my poor mum is thinking that I've been locked up in a Chinese prison with, you know,
be
and
seen
she
again,
started
yeah.
calling the consulate. And it was just one of those things where lots of steps. Had to get my passport photo done, had to get it from a specific place. Taxi driver didn't know where it was, you know. Why go around, doesn't want to, like, foreigner doesn't want, like, to have to deal with you.
Meters running.
Yeah. And it was just, again, more and more things, and the consulate in Chengdu were just so amazing. They got my passport done as quickly as they could. So I got there on a Wednesday, I had my passport, I think. I got there on a Thursday, I had my passport by Friday night, but of course, visa entry and exit office is only open weekdays. So then I had to be there for the weekend, apply for my visa to exit China. And they were like, "Yeah, it's gonna take 10 days." I thought, let me leave.
Can't I just like scale some rock face to get back into Hong Kong? I mean,
Oh God, if only.
I would have known, but it felt like that, like metaphorical biggest rock face
Yeah,
in
wow.
the world, and least equipment available to me, that kind of thing. And eventually I got back, and I was never so in love with Hong Kong, and I got bus number 10 to my house from the airport, and I sat on the top. Everything's double decker, and I just watched the sunset, and I was really. Hong Kong is a busy place, and it is still got a heavy bureaucratic feel, but nothing like being alone in a new city in China, trying to replace your travel documents and prove that you're like a real person.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So I have a bit of a fear of forms and officials now.
So epic story about a couple of cases that really pushed you guys in different ways. Tell me what you learned from staying on a cliff face at night time and surviving losing your passport in China. What did that teach you about resilience? What did it change in you?
I think it just really teaches you that you are a lot stronger than you really think. Like, I will be the first to admit, I genuinely think I don't have any upper body strength whatsoever. But I clung to that cliff for dear life for like 3 hours as we made our way around. And like afterwards I was like, I did not think I had that in me. Like, I genuinely am surprised that you have that, not only just like physical strength of what you can do when you really need to, but like the mental strength. Like, there was a moment where I was like tearing up and crying, but I was like, Kim, you got to stop crying, because if you're crying, you won't be able to concentrate, and if you can't concentrate, you're going to fall off this cliff. And so it's like, you really just have to pull yourself together and go, okay, I'm just going to get done what needs to be done, and then afterwards I can, deal with the emotions afterwards.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like, I think it really emphasizes that, like, it really teaches you a lot to rely on yourself and like just trust yourself in just every way, because you're a lot stronger than you really think you are.
Aww. Yeah, I agree. I think it's about hitting that point, which is the point where everything would fall apart and you realise that you don't, because you can't. And it's a really great quality to have. The same time this was happening, for me, my granddad went to hospital. My dad flew over to see him. My dad ended up going to hospital.
Wow.
And it was just one of those things, like, just kept getting, worse and worse. But actually, my ability to deal with it was better and better, because I felt like there are things that matter and there are things that don't, and you have to. There's also learning to focus on the good stuff, because
I was going to say, is there like some sort of level of detachment there where it's kind of like, okay, reality right now sucks, and like there's tons of people that face that every day, right?
Yeah. It's actually more of the reality is amazing feeling. Like when I was in Chengdu, I stayed in this hostel, and I didn't know anybody, I didn't have any friends, and I was just staying. It was like a room of 12 people, and this Chinese boy walks in, and his name's Nari, and he goes, hi, and I went, oh, hi, how are you going? And he was just really happy that I'd spoken to him. He goes, do you want to get some snacks? Spent the weekend just taking me around Chengdu, eating snacks all the time, and he would say things like, okay, don't finish that because we've got somewhere else, like I want to take you to the next place, and we'll actually walk further, so we'll be more hungry by the time that we get there.
Nice.
And I saw the baby pandas, and I thought, like, there's only like some hundreds of the pandas left, these giant pandas in the world, and I was like, what's a passport? When you've got food and people to care about you and things, like, they matter.
It's such an awesome thing to think about, right? I mean, I used to think when I was going through uni, I did some travelling and travelled around Europe and just slept in train stations, just stupid stuff, but just, it was reality, right? Oh, I've got nowhere to stay for the night, I'll just sleep there, and, ended up with some great stories out of that.
Yes.
And I kind of ended up with this idea, like, I called it, like, retrospective forward thinking. It's like thinking forward and knowing that you're in the middle of this shitstorm, and in 12 months' time, God, this is going to make a great story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many. I think that's where resilience really comes in, because there's this amazing travel culture that everyone thinks you're having these great adventures, but at the time it's exhausting and it's scary, and you're not sure if you like it. But you have to, you gotta stay committed to like the person you'll be in a little bit, looking back and thinking, good on you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm proud of you, and that was really worth it. Yeah.
And even in those experiences when you're tired and like stressed, and it is quite exhausting, like you
feel a bit alive.
you
don't
feel
you?
alive, and you're
You're
laughing
alive,
with your friends. Like last year when I was doing that semester at HKU, like during our mid-sem break, myself and then two other girls, we went to Korea. Cool. And we didn't really prepare for the weather. Well, actually no, they prepared, I didn't.
At least you're honest.
I did, for some reason I had it in my head that it would be a similar weather to Hong Kong. And so like I just packed for summer, and it was not summer there. And first of all, I was freezing, and then we planned to stay on this place called Jeju Island.
Oh yeah.
Which is really lovely, and it's like a lot of celebrities go to it. And it's like a resort island. It's very beautiful, very like village-like, and like you could see all these funky things. And we had the best time there, but it was like pouring rain for like, we'd have like these little pockets of sunshine that 3 hours a day that we could, go and do a lot of things, and like, but it was just so rainy. And I remember there was just this clear moment, and it was pouring down rain, we'd gotten lost, and we could see like a museum up ahead, and we were like, we'll just spend 3 hours in that museum. And we like legged it across like this, concrete thing towards this museum, like this concrete like big courtyard. And then I realized like my friend Wahida was like running next to me as we were like legging it out of the pouring rain, and there were like these like ponds in this concrete, but you couldn't really tell because like the water was just that high anyway. And I remember when he was about to like step in, I was like shoved her out of the way. I was like, no, don't do it. But then we like stopped and realized what she'd about to like fall into, and we just looked at each other dripping wet and just burst out laughing. And you're just laughing like hysterically as you're running, like trying to get to the museum. Then when we get to the museum, they're like, we're about to close. There's a museum next door that's open till 11 p.m. Go there. And so we were like legging it back down, like tripping. We were like, and then the museum that we got into was an ice museum, which is like very beautiful. Like it was so beautiful, like with all these ice sculptures. But it was so cold inside, and because our clothes froze, like we froze. And like I remember they gave us like this scarf. Like the museum provided you like a scarf, and so we had these scarves, and like I was like, can I have like 10, please? And we were just shivering and we were looking at these beautiful ice sculptures. We got nice photos.
Like, I don't like it.
But like, you just gotta laugh in those situations. Like, we were laughing hysterically about like, of course the museum that's open is an ice museum. Like, why wouldn't it be? Like,
Tell me something. Tell me something, guys. So, I mean, before you, we haven't even gotten on to what you're actually doing here in Hong Kong. I mean, we'll get into that in a second. But
Seems like the side story.
it does seem like the side story,
all
doesn't
the
it?
other adventures.
Which is good. I mean, it's important. But you know, to what extent were you guys like that before you got on the plane and came, not specifically here to Hong Kong, but went travelling, for example? Molly, let's start with you.
I'm the sort of person, I've travelled a lot, and I always, every time I travel, I'm like, now I've got it, now I really know who I am, and it's different travelling alone, and it's beautiful travelling alone. It's been, for me, a real exercise in learning to enjoy my own company, and I like myself a lot better. I laugh at myself, you know, I like walking down the street. I really do. I walk down the street and I'll think something's funny and I'll be like, yeah, good joke. Like, it's just,
nice.
It's a nice experience that in itself.
Do you forgive yourself more for stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I had, everyone does, really high standards for how you're supposed to be, but also how you're supposed to feel when you're in an amazing situation. And we have expectations of what a place will be like and how we'll respond to it, and if we don't perform it in that way, you're not sure how to feel. Now I make a point of having a lot less expectations going to a place and being a lot more open to just the experience I have being enough.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not, I don't have as much a fear of missing out on, you know, ticking these things off the list, because I can just like make the most of what I feel like when I'm there, and that's a really like grounding. It's a really grounding but also exciting way to be, I think. Yeah.
What about you, Kim?
Well, before I got on the plane to Hong Kong, I'd never, first of all, flown by myself, like out of Australia. Like, I've flown like domestically.
Cool.
I'd never, because the trips that I'd been on before, like, they were someone else's responsibility, and I was kind of just coming along. Like, you know, for example, if there was like a family holiday, like my mum would plan it, and I'd just show up. Like, no prep whatsoever. Like, I just kind of go along with it. And then, like, I did this amazing uni trip a couple of years ago where I went to China, but that again, like, I didn't plan anything. Like, I went along, like, my professors planned everything, like the honors college, like the Griffith Honors College planned everything. I was just there to experience and not have that sort of stress and worry in my mind, because I knew that, like, if we missed a flight, it's okay. Like, they'll figure something out. Like, you know, like, it wasn't sort of it wasn't like on me to think of those things. But, like, you know, getting here to Hong Kong, first of all, I had to figure out how to get from the airport to, like, my accommodation, and then first of all I had to figure out where my accommodation was, and it was a bit stressful. And so I think you definitely grow a lot, and you learn, like, you are so much more independent, and, like, now a lot of things that kind of made me a little stressed before, like, I just do it now naturally without thinking. Like, when I planned my first trip outside of Hong Kong, like during like one of the long weekends we had, it was to, what was that, Korea actually. It was like the Korea mid-semester break. Like, I remember I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to plan this, we're going to book all our flights, we're going to book all our accommodation, we're going to, like, you know, we're going to be so organized, we're going to know everything what we're going to do, and it just wasn't like that. Like, you know, like, we had organized stuff, but we ended up doing like lots of other random things. Like, we walked into, like, you know, some random, like, this village that had kind of like stayed the same way for like ages, and so, like, it was very interesting. Or, like, you know, we we went to like the wrong like garden with like all these like cool rock formations, and there was just the three of us and like the guy, and no, he couldn't speak English, and obviously we couldn't speak Korean, and he had Google Translate and he had Google Translate on his phone, and he was so happy because I think his is a much smaller garden that no one really goes to, because we made a mistake and ended up at this one. Like, he was so thrilled to have us, and we had the best time. Like, it was so pretty, and like, he took us around to each like little rock formation, was like, oh, this happened because of this, obviously through Google Translate.
Sure.
And I remember there was this moment where he said something in Korean and then looked at us and laughed, as he was pointing to like a tree that had like another tree coming out, and we didn't obviously know what he said, and so we laughed, and because we were waiting for Google Translate to say, and then Google Translate in its like monotone voice goes, "Oh my God," and all of us just laughed because that's like so hysterically funny.
God,
and
yes.
like it was just it's so liberating, and you feel so much more independent. You have all these experiences that you can fall back on. So like now whenever I book a flight, I'm not stressed. Like if I don't book accommodation until like I show up at like a hotel lobby, like I'm fine with it, or like a hostel, like it's fine. Like you just learn you learn to just trust that, you know, everything will be okay. Like you will figure it out. Like
and your experiences are like your own.
Yeah.
Because you're not answerable to what you should have done. And because of that, you can, you're open to those beautiful times with people that you wouldn't have met. And if you're so stuck on the plan going like the way you expected it to, you just have all these experiences that everyone else has had that mean nothing to you.
Yeah, it really...
I don't remember all the museums that I've been to, but I remember people who let me into the house and made me some food or gave me a lift or...
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely changed from the first person who got on that first flight to Hong Kong to like being here in this garden now.
You what? But you guys are here doing something very specific. Can you tell me what the New Colombo Plan is?
Are you
It's a non-interview.
Okay.
It is an interview.
Well, we laugh because we end up with this speech that just comes out because you're so used to telling people, but it's an Australian government initiative.
Yeah.
Send young undergraduate students to the Indo-Pacific to really like increase our Asia literacy and
just to give you experiences that you wouldn't otherwise have. And I think it's also because it's so well funded. It will give students who, you know, might not have been able to, you know, fund it themselves the opportunity to like do, you know, study abroads or like undertake some internships or like learn a language like in China like Molly did. Like that's
for sure.
Someone who like, you know, wouldn't have that funding wouldn't be able to get that experience. So and
it broadens your horizon as well because you don't have to just work. You don't have to. It's all pretty much within your grasp, which is incredible. I was thinking about that only recently, that I've been so peaceful and thinking why, but it's because you don't have to worry about that like underlying financial concern. But the whole point is to you know, get these young people across all the different industries. Like we've got friends in film and in media and in like AI. We study law. Everything. And
Haptic car, very very smart, interesting guy. He's going to change the world, right?
Yes. And
this part of the world.
We're all we're all there to sort of experience the Asia Pacific, which is the region that is going to lead the world in the next.
It's true.
In our generation, like as we like go into our careers, that's what it will be about, and you know we want to shape it a bit and be shaped by it a bit, and
it's fascinating because, you know, that I think that's absolutely true. You know, I've travelled all over the world and haven't spent that much time in the Asia Pacific, but you know, even just when I was organising to come and meet with you guys, and Molly, you know, you sent me a WhatsApp saying like, we live on this like little this island off Hong Kong. Oh yeah, there's lots of islands around Hong Kong, of course. But I was like, wow, that's so unique and different. And actually, if you think about the highest value of why a government invests in a scholarship program to send students studying, it's actually that knowledge. It's just funny, like, you know, a little island, but you actually need that knowledge and those connections to the place and that level of detail of understanding, because that's something that you actually bring back for all of Australia, not just for yourself. Yeah,
for sure. You notice that talking to people from home, because your life is your life and you kind of get used to it and you don't recognise necessarily everything that you're gaining. Talking about people back home, and I've not sat down with books and learnt about Hong Kong, but my knowledge of Hong Kong and China is just vastly larger than it was before I left, and without even intending it to be, you know, to a certain extent. And it makes such a difference. I have friends all over China, and at the time I'm just like, this is great, like they're nice and friendly. Now two of them are getting married, and I'm going to go and see them in September. But they're also in like different industries as well.
Nice.
In like childcare and journalism and science, engineering. And now if I need to know a person in China that can help me with those things, I have people, like real friends that I can talk to.
Yeah.
And it's really great to be
Soft diplomacy, isn't it?
It
and
really
to feel
is.
part of it like that. Like, you know, we are part of the Asia Pacific, and like I want to be involved.
And it totally goes both ways, because like a lot of the time, you know, when you're meeting people, obviously one of the first things is like, oh, I'm Kim, I'm from Australia. And people are like, oh, you know, I've always wanted to go to the beaches in Australia. And then because I'm lucky enough to, you know, study on the Gold Coast, I'm like, I actually study very close to one of the nice beaches you're talking about. And like you show them pictures. And
Griffith
then,
Uni, right? Griffith.
Yes,
Yeah.
Griffith. And like you show them pictures, and then like they're like, oh yeah, like, oh, you know, I'd really like to go there one day. Or they'll be like, oh, I've got family, like, you know, living in Melbourne. Is it possible, you know, to go from Melbourne very quickly to go up there? And I'm like, if you take
No.
a flight, yes. Not if you drive it. But like, you know, like, and then, you know, you start to connect over these things. And, you know, people were very based on connections. Like, you relate to someone a lot more, you know, if you share the stories with them, you know, you share your experiences and like just exchange stuff. You're exchanging knowledge. Like you might find out, you know, what they're like, you know, how they live in like, you know, Germany or like America or like, you know, Hong Kong, like what their personal stories is, and you can share yours, and just
And
that
it's
sort of
just
like,
similar as
Yeah.
well. Like there's so much, you know, especially for Australia, we're like an island country, and there's a lot of pressure to see ourselves as like our own sort of stronghold in a region that's very different from us. And the region is very diverse, but we, you know, there are so many similar stories, and there's
Yeah.
so much more that is like unites us than that will divide us.
definitely.
It's just silly to say, but it's really true.
It's so true. Like I talked to like a lot of, when I was studying at HKU, I was in a class, and a lot of it was actually local students. There were maybe like, you know, 7 of us exchange students, and the rest were like local students. And chatting to them, you know, about their like, you know, what they do on the night out, or like, you know, where they go on a weekend, you know, like they do very similar things to, you know, what we do back home. They'd be like, oh, I go and eat food and watch a movie with my friends. Or I go to the beach and we, you know, take photos. Or like, you know,
It's the same.
It's very-
Right?
it's-
It's just the same shit. It's just packaged up slightly differently. but-
Exactly, and I think because when you realize that, like, it's such a
Nice.
great lesson, and you know, you go back home with a completely different perspective, thinking, I'm not that different from everyone else. Like,
Yeah.
no one else is that different from me. Like, we're all the
feel like,
same.
like we live here
Yeah.
on Earth together.
Yeah, we're like,
yeah.
That's such an incredible thing to learn. And you guys are so lucky at such a young age, you know, to actually learn that and bring that back. Because that's something you share with others. You know, I was just at this big conference in the US at the start of this year, and like those of you guys who know me, like, know I like my video, but I'm like, I don't know anyone. I'm doing just this for fun, and end up like kind of running into all these famous YouTube people. Who like super famous, right? But I had no idea. I just saw like some person, some human in the middle of this throng of.
And you're like, I
And
do
I was
that
like,
too.
oh, that's good. Well, no, not so much that. No, but I kind of saw that person and went, oh, that's interesting. Like, that person has a crowd around them. Like, they must have an interesting story to tell. So I don't know who they are. So I just go up and, you know, ask them for an interview, and, you know, no worries, just to shoot a little interview. And I think that's, and then later it was like, I wonder who that was. So I took their name and go and research them, and it's like, oh shit, they've got like 5 million followers, and, you know, like, and great. But I think that's the nice thing is that, you know, actually if you're able to walk into that situation just without the pretense of, you know, someone's backstory, whether it's like they're famous or they're from Hong Kong or they're from China or I'm from Australia, and you just walk into it and you're just like, hey, human being.
if you
Right.
strip it like right back to its bare essentials, like, and you just have like, you know, a basic conversation of like, you know, oh, you know, what you eat for lunch? And they could be like, oh, I ate this. It's like, oh, that's really cool.
And I Instagrammed it.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Girls
you can-
around the world, like, that is a common theme.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. But, like, you know, it's that sort of thing that's really important. And I think, because one of the emphasis, like one of the things that NCP emphasizes is those people-to-people connections, because that is what, like, you know, our society is built upon. That's what every industry is built upon. Like, you know, people connecting with each other,
Yeah, wow.
working together, doing great things. Like, you know, I guess that's one of the biggest, the whole reason why the NCP is, because they want those people to people starting from a young age.
This region is particularly like, you know, what's it called? Guangxi, like.
Guangxi, yeah, connections.
Yeah, like it's specific and genuine. You know, the like developing trust is so important.
So important.
And like Asia is writing new rules for how people are going to engage like at those big levels. So it's important that we know and that we
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now tell me, like, let's get down to some of the nitty gritty. What's it like? How about like series of quick questions? Like, what's the best thing, Molly, then Kim? What's the best thing about living in Hong Kong?
Rooftops.
Rooftops.
Yeah.
Why?
Like your sense of personal space really changes when you live in a city like this, and when you spend so much time crowded behind, like underneath on the ground, these really, really tall high rises. You don't know what Hong Kong looks like, and then you get up the top and you're by yourself and it's breezy and you can see everything, and rooftops are always perfect to have that dual grungy and very affluent Hong Kong feel, you know, because no one ever like decorates the rooftops. Like it's always got like the air conditioning unit and the piping and stuff on there, so you can kind of just look out on everything that Hong Kong is and feel like.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Kim, best thing about living in Hong Kong?
Living in Hong Kong. I have two things. Sorry.
Okay. Let you have it.
So my first one is food.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hong Kong is such a melting pot of different cultures. So you know, you have the British colonial influence, then you have like obviously the Chinese influence, and then you have like a lot of other like, you know, Indo-Pacific cultures and ethnicities thriving in Hong Kong. So you get like so many different like examples of amazing food. So you know, you got the dim sum, then you got like, you know, high tea at some fancy like restaurants, or like brunches. Like brunch. Molly and I love brunch.
Brunch.
They're like brunch, and then like you get things like Hong Kong has the best Japanese food outside of Japan.
Nice.
So you get that as well, and then you have like Chungking Mansions, which has the best Indian food you'll get.
Bubble tea
from like, you know, Taiwan, and like, you know, the Hong Kong version of it. And so it's just such a, you know, you get all these different experiences in like relatively like a small space.
Yeah.
Like Hong Kong is quite small comparatively.
Nice.
But, and then my second thing is hiking. Like,
yes,
I love hiking. Like, I never thought,
that's a better choice.
like, like I never thought that I would love hiking as much as I do.
Hiking.
But yes, hiking. So like.
Now see, this is something that's kind of blown me away, because, you know, as someone who's never come to Hong Kong or this part of the world before, you know, if you say hiking, all I'm thinking about is Hong Kong is high rise.
I know,
Yeah.
it's 45% of Hong Kong, I think at least, is
a bit more.
like heritage listed
Country
natural
parks.
reserve. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's so beautiful, and I've gotten into like doing a lot of hiking.
Awesome.
Like, you know, there's the classic ones that you do, like the Peak, like, you know, Dragon's Back, and they're very, very nice, beautiful ones. And then you get the more ones that, like, you know, aren't as typical. So like, you know, you can do like the Wilson Trail, which is like, there are 4 big trails around Hong Kong, you know,
Sure.
from 50 k's to like 100 k's, which is a lot. And obviously I'm not going to do all of it, but I do like the stages of it, and like it's really, really hard, and like, you know, there's just so many steps above you and you're looking at it and you're like, is this even worth it? But like you keep going, and then you get to the top and you have like the most beautiful view.
Amazing.
And you can just see all of Hong Kong. You can see like all the big buildings, you can see other islands, you can see the mountains, you can just see greenery, and you just feel like so cliche, but like on top of the world. And like,
And Hong Kong is a mix of the world, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's like a compromise between all of those different things. All of the, like you said, like the underground foodie stalls, and like big high rises, and beautiful ocean, beautiful rolling hills, and
yeah. And you
so
just
you
get
just
to
have it all
feel that.
together.
Amazing.
And just getting that view when you like, and it's such a nice thing, like, because sometimes when you're like, say in like Mongkok or like Central, like they're busy and bustling, and like it's very vibrant and like interesting and fun, but it is quite fast paced. And
Yeah,
so when
sure.
you get out like on a hike, and you can just look at that and be like just.
I guess that's
breathe.
the same thing as the rooftops, right? It's like
Yeah.
that little sense of personal space.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What about studying? Studying in Hong Kong. What's the best thing, Molly, about studying? in Hong Kong? Not specifically HKU, which is an amazing world-class university, of course, but just Hong Kong in general. Why does it rock as a student?
I guess global perspective with the Asia focus, I'd say.
Nice.
Like there's a lot of visiting professors at HKU and all the universities, so you get lots of different angles on topics and pretty much the best, the most knowledgeable people on those issues, and that's really exciting. It's a hub for students, so there's people that you study with are from all around the world. And particularly when you get students from Europe, compared to Australia, their Asian knowledge is a lot more limited. And so I think
it's surprising, I thought.
yeah,
but also
for
not
us it's
surprising 'cause
surprising.
they're like-
Yeah. Like our international relations degree at home is all about Asia, but their international relations is about Europe. So it's cool to see those things coming together, because then you get the European perspective and the Asian perspective in your class.
Nice. What about you, Kim?
I think it's very interesting because I think a lot of the students, especially the ones I interacted with in HKU, like a lot of them are so passionate and like politically and socially active.
Really?
I found it so surprising, like you know, like the people I talked to, they like, you know, be so passionate about like, you know, democracy and like in like the umbrella movement especially, and like in my dormitory where I was staying at RC Lee, Molly stayed there as well for like the semester after me.
Coincidence that we've had almost the exactly same experience.
But like there was like a democracy wall where like where like you could pin like, you know, your thoughts or your opinions onto this like wall, and like, you know, like, and like it was full, the wall was full.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, you know, like someone, just one lone person put
Or
like
weirdo trying to engage in
like,
politics. It's not like
trying to
that.
be into the world, but like these students are so passionate, and like I was really lucky enough that one of the courses I did was like law and religion, which is naturally a very interesting, contentious topic. But the professor that taught it was like, he is also a very controversial figure in Hong Kong, because he's very like, you know, like pro-democracy, like, you know, he's big in the umbrella movement, like, you know, he's come under a lot of criticism because of that, and like, so engaging with him and then watching, like, seeing him engage with like all the other, you know, local and non-local students, because this course was like filled with people, like it was just such an interesting like experience just to get all these different perspectives and just that debate, I guess. Yeah,
amazing. Okay, so like we're taught that, you know, like you've got to find your passion. Everyone's always talking about find your passion and like follow your own trail, but that's really hard to do when you only know what you know. So why is something like studying overseas so good at breaking down the barriers? And why should people like just be like, you know what, screw my graduation date, like I need to do this overseas study thing? Kim?
I think for me, I know that my degree, like I know that because of coming over to Hong Kong, because I'll be over here for roughly 19, not in Hong Kong, but like in the Indo-Pacific in general, for like 19 months. I know that my degree is going to be pushed back, like I'm going to graduate later than I'm supposed to, but like I feel like it's so much more valuable, the experiences I've had. And I talk about this with my mother, because my mum's always, you know, a bit confused by that, because she's like, I just want you to graduate, like I just want you to, you know, just have that, you know, degree so you can get a job. But like I think she just wants me to be more secure, which is obviously, as a mother, you know, that's totally understandable.
Sure.
And I think though that like having this experience is just so much more, I guess, because we are more than like, you know, a piece of paper that says we've graduated. You know, no matter what mark you get, like we're more than whatever that piece of paper says. But like, and that piece of paper can only really be one thing on your CV, really. No matter what field you go into, like it's only one thing. Whereas, you know, if you're coming over here, you're saying, you know what, I lived in another country that's like not a Western one. Like I lived in like, you know, like say like, I don't know, I lived in Korea, I lived in Hong Kong, I lived in China, I lived in Japan. Like that's different, and that, because that's different, that makes you, oh, okay, that's a bit.
And it comes with a whole other set of differences, things that you've done while you're there and the person that you became while you were there.
It's like delay 1 year, but actually accelerate, gain 5.
Gain so much.
Oh,
and even then, like, you know, because the New Colombo, you can do like internships and stuff as well. So you could be working, you know, you could, I guess, gain experience what you might do once you graduate anyway. Like, you know, you might not find the right firm or like the right industry or the right business straight away, so you have to hop. But like with the NCP, like you can internship hop now. You got 6 months to do that. You can, you know, hop around a few things and try a few things and go, oh, I didn't like that, but I really loved this. And they might be your future colleagues. And I feel like that is so valuable. Even the experiences that you didn't like, you can say like, I learned this. Like, so there's no matter what, no experience is worthless. It's like useless. No matter what you're
it's a kind of pass to do things that you might not like without it being an issue then, because you're funded through it. That's good.
Yeah, like.
But even take the funding out. I mean, to me, what you've just said is so beautiful, because you know, every failure isn't failure if you learn something from it, right? It's like, you know, you lost your passport. You could like be still beating yourself up about losing 2 weeks of your life, and yes, But like you learned something exactly.
Which is a crazy thing to say.
But it's so hard, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, Molly. But like, you know, it's like when you're going through school, you're going to uni, you get taught all of this knowledge, and at the same time, this is kind of like all this technical knowledge, and you don't really know if that's your thing. Maybe you're interested in it.
Yeah, I said like, you know what you know, but you don't know what to do with what you know, and you need more.
So,
you need.
Say that one more time. Say that slowly.
Okay, I said that you know what you know, but you don't know what to do with what you know.
Do with what you know.
Yeah, and when does your life start? It's, you know, your life has been happening forever, and you're taught to defer. Again, your passion, to pursue your passion, which doesn't make sense. And I think that's the biggest lesson of traveling, is that, your life is right here and it's happening. So, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
I guess that's one of those things, you know, I heard this awesome podcast, I think it was Tim Ferriss' podcast, and they were talking about, you know, the fact that when you transition from high school to university, it's like you're going from this kind of structure where in high school, you're a minor, like mum and dad tell you what to do, or you know, parents, friends, whatever, everyone tells you what to do, the school lays everything out for you, everything is structured for you.
And you think you hate it, you think you want to be free.
Yeah, and then you walk into uni and suddenly you're like, wow, like this is all on me. And not a single thing in your background has actually prepared you for that.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a really big like jump. Like it's like such a big like slap in the face, because now like you're the one like, oh, if you don't, like, you know, no one's going to chase you to go to a lecture. No one's going to chase you for your assignment. Like no one's going to, you know, chase you to, you know, pick this course or like, you know, go to this course or study for an exam. No one's going to chase you to do anything. Like it's literally all on you. And that's a lot of stress and like pressure for, like, you know, like people who graduate high school at like 17, 18, like for a young person, that's a lot of pressure once you've grown up with everything essentially being like laid out for you. Like, you have to do this at 9:30, you have to do this at 10:30, you go to this class at like this, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In some ways it's great, that change, because your successes are yours, but the biggest thing that is like your failures are yours too.
Yeah,
And
nice.
that is hard to navigate when you've not been responsible, you know, and so people are really hard on themselves. It's actually so strange when you think about it, that the hardest time in your life, like personality, like physicality wise, is also when you're supposed to be making decisions that affect you. You start uni as one person, and you change and you grow and you leave a different person, and you're supposed to have like cemented your career in that time. How?
Yeah.
How? So don't rush it. Definitely. Like I'm not ready to. I don't want to.
I love Gary Vaynerchuk. You know, big guy on YouTube, and you know, Gary will always say, like, people who are in their early 20s, just fucking don't sweat, because you know you're 22. You can literally go out and go traveling for the next 5 years, and you will still be as young as fuck. Like you've still got your entire life to go and do degrees and everything. So yeah,
sure.
Awesome. Oh boy! Wow, that's like deep, you know, philosophical questions to ask there. All right, so if having kind of laid that out, you know, travel's really important. Going and studying overseas is like a good way to, you know, open up your horizons. You know what you know, but you don't know what to do with what you know. What's your advice, Molly, for somebody who's sitting there watching this thinking, sounds like they've got crazy stories, like climbing mountain peaks and losing passports and all this kind of shit.
Don't do that.
But like that sounds like it's too big for me.
Never. It's the most important lesson is to learn that your life is your life, and that what you think you should be doing is maybe irrelevant, and the only way to get out of that is to get out of where you are. And just you don't have to know things, because you can go and experience and learn. You know, you don't have to decide those kinds of things now. And again, the world is really big and exciting, but it's also a lot smaller, a lot closer, a lot more accessible than you think it is, and you have to trust that you'll go away and that, I don't know, the world will like look after you and make you into a good person that you enjoy being around.
Yeah, you just gotta really trust yourself that you know, your parents have raised you well, like, you know, your guardians have raised you well, like,
Hopefully, yeah.
yeah, hopefully, and like you just gotta trust that when the time comes you'll know what to do, or like even if you don't know what to do, there'll be people or something around that can help you make that choice. And immersing yourself in something so different, like it'll push you, yes, it'll challenge you, yes. There'll be times where you'll cry maybe, or like like you'll be stressed and you're thinking, God, do I want to just get back on the plane and go home where it's safe, it's secure, I can trust that, you know, someone will look after me, like I'll be fine back home because it's what I know. But like it's so much more exciting, and you'll thank yourself. You will thank yourself wholeheartedly for pushing yourself and going to do these random crazy things of, you know, like immersing yourself in like, you know, Chinese language school in the mountains for like a month, or, you know, like studying at a uni like at HKU for like a semester, you know, studying courses that you might not have been able to study back home, or, you know, speaking to people that you literally would not have otherwise met. And there's something so special about that, and no one can take that away from you. Once you've had that, like, it's yours.
You have these hallmark moments in your life, and if you travel you get more of them than you would if you were just staying at home.
For sure.
It sounded to me, Kim, like there was a story there. There was something under the surface there that you had some experience. Did you want to go home when you first landed here?
I did.
Yeah.
I remember when I first landed in Hong Kong, I arrived quite late at night to my dormitory, and the ladies at the reception, they didn't speak much English, so it was sort of more like I showed them my passport, they looked at the name, looked at me on the register, handed me my key and sent me on my merry way. And I remember
First time out of Australia.
Yeah, and
wow.
it was very stressful, like, and because I landed in like the peak of Hong Kong summer, I was dripping in sweat, I was lugging these big heavy suitcases with me. I got to my dorm, I opened it, I saw an aircon, but no one had told me how to work it, and I didn't realise until the next day that you had to go and like put money on this card and then like tap the card, and then anyway, that was a thing. And I remember it was just so hot and I was so miserable, and like I was just dripping in sweat. I hadn't been able to talk to anyone because like it was like the first day of move-in, so not a lot of people had moved in, and those who had moved in were obviously in bed or sleeping or just not where I was.
Yeah.
And I remember it was pretty grim. I was like lying there, I was like, God, this is miserable. And then the next day, like, this big typhoon happened, and we were like,
what?
It was like insane. It was like one of the ones
This
where,
country
like,
just keeps delivering.
They lock you in, like you're not allowed to
you're
leave.
physically not allowed to leave your room. So all I had with me was like a pack of Oreos, and I just lived on that for like a day and a half. And I remember I was just like lying in bed, and I was like thirsty because the bottles of water I bought like were not actually water. They were some weird like grape flavored thing, and I was like, can I just not get a break? And I remember I was like sitting in bed like tearing up, and I was like, this is not what people had told me it was going to be like. This is not what I expected. And I remember I was like, oh, if I tell my mom, she'll be like, just get back on a plane. It's obviously horrible. Just get back on a plane, come home. And I remember the next day, like the typhoon broke, and I met up with a few friends, and then we had some dinner. And then, you know, it's just like you get to talk to people, and then like it was so good. And like I remember I messaged another NCP, Chris, and I was like feeling so miserable. I was like, I need to talk to another human. like another human that knows like so much what I've been just dealt with. And I messaged him and I was like, can I please join you and Hannah for dinner? Like, and then he was like so chill about it. He's like, yeah, of course. He's like, I'll message some of the others and we'll take you to dim sum. And so it was like my first dim sum with like a big group of NCPs, and like we were just chatting, and I was like, this is what it's meant. Like, this is what.
All of a sudden, those like really scary differences that you weren't expecting aren't
scary,
so bad, and there's a lot more that's very similar as well to pull you through.
And like, it was just, it's sort of literally just what I needed. Something to just like ground me, to make me feel like not as isolated, locked up in my room with a typhoon battering the windows. like that was pretty grim. And like, it's just, you just need that sort of like human connection. And I think especially for us Hong Kong NCP scholars, we got very close. Like we'd, you know, obviously we'd make our own friends, you know, that we'd, you know, have classes together with, or that we lived in the same dormitory with, or that we, you know, just met. Worked with, like just met. But like the NCP cohort was such a great group to fall back on, because they're literally going through what you are, like in a way that someone else might not be able to understand. Like, you know, we'd meet up and we'd be like, oh, you know, like this is what I had, you know, what form do I have to send to like our case manager? I have no idea. Like someone be like, oh, I have that form, and give it to you. Or just to be like, oh, you know, I'm really missing home, or like, I'm really missing meat pies, or like, I'm really missing Vegemite, or like, you know, I just miss like going to like this Aussie beach and like being like in the nice soft sand. Like, it's just someone to like have those connections.
So the community is really important, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
for
I think that's actually one of the reasons we started the Global Society years ago, was because, you know, outside of a couple of unis that do a really good job of creating community, or the NCP, which is a very specific scholarship fund, you know, there's tons of students going and studying overseas all the time from various universities. So, you know, it was just a chance to get like 40 universities from around Australia. Every student going to Hong Kong is in one group, so you've always got that network, because that's actually what gets you through.
Absolutely. And I mean, Kim, do you want to talk about when Kim didn't make it home for Christmas and she was expecting to?
Yeah.
So that would have been hard, I think.
It was really hard, because I think I always had it in my mind that I was going to go home for Christmas and then come back to Hong Kong and finish the rest of it. So I was like really looking forward to being home for Christmas. And because I guess for me and my family, like Christmas is very family time. Like all my aunts and uncles, like my mom, and like all the cousins and all the kids, like we all gather at like someone's house and like, you know, have the big family celebration. And I think because I had to move out of my dorm at a specific date, and I could only move into my new place at a specific date, like that was after Christmas, like the 27th or something.
Yeah, right.
And I remember I was like so gutted, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna like be home for Christmas. And I was so upset, and I was crying, and I was like, I'm not gonna have that. But then I was like chatting to some of my other friends, and I was like trying to figure out what I was gonna do. Like I was like, oh, maybe I could go visit because one of my other friends that's a scholar, he was living in Taiwan. He was like, oh yeah, you can come over and spend Christmas with me. And I was like, okay, you know, I could go do that. And then one of my other friends that was here, she was like, oh, my family's not gonna be with me for Christmas. Do you want to meet with me, and we can, you know, just spend the day together and have like, you know, do like some random things. And we had a great time. We went and got noodles at this like literally hole in the wall place that's like apparently got a Michelin star, and it was so good and so cheap.
Wow.
It was so tasty. And like, I mean,
not your typical
not
Christmas.
Not your typical Christmas lunch, but it was tasty. And then we got massages at some random massage parlor like that she found, and got our nails done. And it was like,
Still special.
It wasn't like the Christmas I had in mind, but it was like a fun experience with like, you know, a good friend of mine, like that I'll still have even though I go back to Australia and stuff. Like,
isn't that the most important thing? It's all about the present tense, isn't it? It's like not what's happening tomorrow, not what happened yesterday, but always about what's happening today.
Definitely.
Awesome. Guys, it's been such a privilege to talk with you, and thank you for welcoming me to Ulama.
Oh, we're so
Lama?
happy to have you. I say llama, but that's
Lama. I don't know.
Lama
not
Island
llama.
in Hong
Not
Kong.
llama, wouldn't be llama.
Lama, that's my Australian drawl. Lama. And yeah, we had, actually that's a bit horrifying. We had like beers at lunchtime that were cheaper here on an island in Hong Kong than down on the Corso in Manly, which is a little bit embarrassing, but there we go.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You know. It is what it is, and that's the beauty of travel. Is like, you know, when suddenly you stray into that little town in Nepal and they've got a Snickers bar, You know, and you're like, what? It's a Snickers bar? No way.
Talk to me about Snickers bar.
Really? Hang on, is there a Snickers bar story?
The passport.
Oh, yeah.
Traded the passport for the Snickers.
Very wise. I mean, you remember the story of the chap that got lost in Nepal in the mountains and survived like for 40 days on a Mars bar? Yeah, it's a true story.
Self-control, isn't it?
No, I think he ate it all on day one.
Oh, right.
From what I understand.
And
It's
it was
an
like
incredible story.
enough to, oh gosh, Mars just got a great promotion.
That's right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that could have been you guys, like up on a cliff face somewhere
I
in
mean,
the
really.
hills above Hong
Yeah, we had
Kong.
some gummy bears, I think.
We had gummy bears and like snakes, I think, or something. And cheese. We had some leftover cheese.
Cheese.
There
That's all
was
you need.
there was
Cheese
a
is
point-
all you need.
You
Not
wouldn't
love.
have perished.
Oh god.
If somebody's coming to Hong Kong, so actually the backstory on this trip of mine, like the reason we're even here is hilarious. I won't tell you the whole story. You can watch one of the morning walk videos. I think it's episode 23. I'll explain the story to you. But you know, this was just fortuitous, and it's been so cool to catch up with you and meet you because I basically had no plans coming here and just kind of reached out through one of the networks, and here we are having like an awesome lunch conversation and seeing something that I absolutely never would have seen in my life.
For sure.
But
And
for-
it's nice because you played a role, like a big role,
Definitely.
in bringing us here because you are interviewer. When we
Yeah.
So-
applied for the scholarship.
I know.
better give the backstory on that is that I was on the interview panel for both Kim and Molly for the New Colombo Plan. So yeah, it's kind of cool to reconnect.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
what, 2 years later,
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
in Hong Kong, and that's the beautiful thing about kind of life and travel in general, isn't it? Is that like we've had lunch, we've had a great chat here in Hong Kong. Next stop, who knows where?
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
Come visit me in Korea.
Big world.
Korea.
Yeah.
Tell me. Okay, so let's finish on that. So what's next for you, Kim? Where are you going? What are you going to be doing?
So I mentioned before that last year during the midsummer break, I did a trip to Korea with a couple of my friends, and I loved it. It was such an interest. It's so different to Hong Kong, but it's so beautiful in its like own way, and like I just loved it. And so I was like to myself, oh, I'm gonna try and see if I can extend the NCP so I can do a semester in Korea. Because I only did one semester of study in Hong Kong, so I still technically could have another semester somewhere. So thankfully, they were very understanding, and I tried to argue my case well.
Perfect.
And
Like a good lawyer.
like a good lawyer. And I'm going to study international relations and politics in Korea. At
What's
Seoul.
the subject that you signed
Seoul
up
National.
Yeah, Seoul National, yeah.
Very good university.
And I'm really excited because I think that in this particular current political climate, considering the Korean peninsula, like what's going on between the north and south and the rest of the world, I think it's such an interesting time to not only be there, but be studying international politics there. So I'm so excited.
Do you know what's next for you? Like, okay, career's next, but do you kind of have an end goal in point? Have you kind of worked out the career path going forward?
Nope.
Career path.
Oh yeah, sorry, the career path. Deliberate play on words, of course. Yeah.
I don't know. I know I definitely want to work somewhere like international, like, you know, have an international focus. So like specifically like the Indo-Pacific region. I'm not just saying that because of the NCP, but like I genuinely do want to have an Indo-Pacific focus. So I'm thinking maybe like, you know, if I do take the, you know, the law side of my degree and work in like a firm, I'd like it to be like an international firm with offices in like Asia.
Sure.
Or like, you know, if I do take the IR side of my degree and maybe go work through like DFAT or something, like, you know, that's a very good option as well. And just, I don't know, I just want to have something that is like flexible and has, you know, options for, you know, living and working somewhere else. 'Cause I think coming to Hong Kong has made me realize that like this is what I want. Like I want at least to be able to live and immerse myself and work in like some other country, like so different to back home, but like always still having that option of, you know, going back home. Like,
It's like unlimited upside, isn't it?
yeah, definitely.
Did you want that before the NCP?
Actually, I have you to kind of thank for this, and Molly and a lot of the other
really
NCPs that I met in
I'm really
Canberra.
sorry, Mrs. Kim.
No, it's a good thing. Like I remember when I went to Canberra, just, you know, 2 years ago to meet everyone for like our pre-departure training and just to meet everyone really. I was only planning to be away for like 6 months and just in Hong Kong. And like I remember everyone was telling me they were all exciting plans, like, oh, I'm gonna do this in like, you know, this country, I'm gonna do this in Sri Lanka, do this in Nepal, do this in Korea, do this in Japan. I was thinking, I'm a little bit whew, I'm a little bit inspired. And then I was
Nice.
like, and then I remember I was talking to you about this, and you were like, oh my God, go for it, go for the full 19 months, just do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, why the hell am I not?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try and do as much as I can. And you know, I think I also was limited in my mind because I was like, oh, I'm very conscious, you know, I can only take one semester off so that I can graduate on time.
Yeah.
But then I kind of just realized, like, is that really that important when I graduate? Like,
Yeah.
you know, if I graduate at the middle of the year, the end of the year, or like the start of the next year, like, does it really matter that much? And I was like, no. So I just decided to do everything else.
Yay. Awesome. Great story. Molly, what's next for you?
Well, I'm a little less far along in my scholarships. At the moment, I'm working at a media company. And then if everything goes well and I get my visa sorted, I'll go back to HKU for another semester. Look, resilience. So I'll get through. And then, not sure. The whole premise of my scholarship was to, at the end, go to Kiribati, which is an island in the Pacific. Sea levels are rising. I'm really passionate about the climate, and I'm passionate about feeling a responsibility towards the world that you live in. And Kiribati is just beautiful and exciting and sad because it's going to disappear, and we have to get a little more clued up on what we're losing. You know, we're losing an important people, and also we're losing I don't know, a perspective that has always like valued their land, and we need to learn from that if we're gonna be able to look after our planet better. So yeah, I want to go over there, and I want to do some filming and some research, and just kind of pocket that piece of paradise while it still exists. And then we'll see. I have to come back and graduate.
We've talked a lot about graduation, haven't we? Yeah.
At some point, that's not like the priority.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been such a privilege. Once again, thank you so much for the invitation to come over to Alama and spend some time with you. And you know, for all of you guys watching, how do they find you if they want to keep track of you? Or you on Insta? Are you on Twitter? You on?
Yep.
Who the fuck is on Twitter? I don't know.
As like
Sorry, Julie Bishop. I know you are amazing on Twitter.
Yes.
Full of respect.
Yeah,
Like literally, like you know.
Have you seen her Instagram though? She's constantly posting, and I'm like,
she's like our biggest like international exported politician.
Seriously.
She's super
Literally.
successful. I love
Yeah,
her. Great woman, inspiration.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yes.
Where do they find you guys?
My name is Molly Jane Jackson with a Y, Jayne.
Very nice.
And have my like public Facebook and public Instagram.
Cool. Very nice.
Yeah, so I have Facebook as well, Kim Johnson, and then my Instagram, you can follow my adventures on @KimDeannaJones.
Nice.
So, yeah, and then you can just follow my NCP stuff there. I
Awesome.
also have LinkedIn, but I'm horrible at using it. I'm
message on
notorious.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
These
just
days
starting to
we
get
can
into
always
LinkedIn.
find people if there's any questions that like.
Yeah.
You know what? I find like LinkedIn. I've just started posting a bit in LinkedIn, like a lot, particularly video stuff. You kind of notice it's almost like this virgin territory in terms of content, because a lot of people kind of post updates, little bits and pieces, or they share articles and stuff. But there's very actual little original content that people post up there, and it's like if you want to build a career and a name for yourself, I think LinkedIn's got huge potential right now.
I think it needs to. I don't know if that's the right word, but bring it down to earth a little bit as well, like humanize people on LinkedIn, because everyone sort of seems like a robot. And when I'm editing my LinkedIn, I feel a lot of pressure to like cut out the important, interesting things about my personality to like fill in those boxes. And so that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, in fact, LinkedIn, I mean, Global Side's got a video up about that, but like pushed some changes recently, which made it easier to like customize your profile and add more details and hashtags and stuff like that. So they're trying to get into that space, because it all feels that sort of still a bit like, hey, I'm actually like fantastic.
Please hire me because I'm like as least interesting as I could be. Rock the boat.
My attention to detail is perfect, and I'm a great team player, but I'm also exceptional as an individual. I mean, come on, fuck. Like, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes.
It's like talking to like someone's representative, not someone like themselves. Like,
Yeah.
Well, obviously we've enjoyed this chat, because this is the third time that I'm wrapping up. I'm just saying, it has been awesome to chat with you. A real privilege. Check these guys out because they are future superstars for Australia. I'm Rob Lemurlicky, and we will see you next time somewhere around the world on A Life That Travels. Kim, Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.